Hello again. This is one of those crappy videos I make to document an extra large haul. I'm going to do a much more condensed version of what I'm about to do here, and I'll put that up on my YouTube page. There will be a link to this video in the comments underneath in case anybody wants to see every single thing I got in this haul. But just a little quick background. I'm losing daylight, so I gotta be fast. Yesterday I went to uh, what really isn't a political function. It was a fundraiser for a local civic group, but it is political season here in West Virginia. The primaries are coming up in just a couple of weeks, and so I was there engaged in political activity. In any event, while I was there, I ran into the widow of my favorite professor from college, a very nice lady named Carol Bard. She was married to the late great David Bard, who was a history professor I had at Concord College back when it was a college, now a university. But in any event, really enjoyed his instruction. Took every class I could from him over the course of like 2 or 3 years. Um, Dr. Barter will always have a special place in my heart as an instructor and a teacher. Uh, and one of our senior year, well, my senior year, I took a class from him on the history of the American Civil War. And as part of that, there was a voluntary activity you could do. You could go to his house and participate in wargaming based on Civil War battles. He was an avid wargamer. And this, of course, is pre-internet, pre-anything electronic. So we're talking this kind of thing. Oh, this kind of war game. Um, where basically you will have a battle map. You'll play one side or the other. Uh, Units will be represented by small cardboard chits, CHIT. I'm not being crude, I promise. But in any event, he was an avid war gamer, and I got to play every night for a semester at his house, which was just great fun. But in any event, ran into his widow at this civic function, this fundraiser. She was a volunteer at that fundraiser and took the time to come over and say hello. I hadn't seen her since last summer. And even last summer, she'd mentioned that her husband had a huge collection of books, other materials, and I remembered it well. I remember what it looked like back in the late 80s when I was in college. She very kindly offered, as soon as this function's over, let's go over and you can look through his stuff and take anything you want. I want his books and things to go to people who will enjoy them and find them good homes. And of course, I was all over that. A little secret, back in the late 80s when we were going over to his house to war game, um, he had a copy of a very early edition of the basic Dungeons and Dragons game. And I hoped against all hope that that was still there, but it was not. But still, many great treasures. When he passed, he had a library with thousands of books. I took just a small fraction of what I thought were some of the more interesting things. And I have an open invitation. Ms. Bard was kind enough to give me an open invitation. Anytime I want to come back and look some more, I certainly could. It was just one of those things where time and transport were against me, so I had to be a little choosy. Without further ado, I want to go through everything I got from this haul. And of course, this is just a kind gift from Mrs. Bard. So, and I'm going to live up to my promise. One way or another, find good homes for these things. A few I'm going to keep, but we'll go through it and we'll talk about it as we go. First off, stack of war games. I picked out the ones I remember playing as that group, or some of them, and a couple of others that I thought looked interesting. The bottom one is most of these are Civil War games. In fact, the top ones are all Civil War games. The one on the bottom here is a World War II game. We never played any World War II stuff. We played with Civil War stuff. In any event, these are keepers. Those I will keep with my other games and treasure forever. Now, on to books. Let's do the oversized stuff first. There were his collection basically centered on historical events. lots of Civil War stuff, lots of World War II stuff, lots of military history, Russian history, um, European history, some Native American history, a little bit of local history, local like Southern West Virginia history. Anyway, this is the first of several Civil War atlases that I got, and I particularly like this one because it's written by, or edited by James McPherson, who is an extraordinary Civil War historian and writer. Probably wrote the best single volume history of the Civil War. See if I can get the bottom atlases next. All right. Then there are two more Civil War atlases. This one I picked because it's a DK sponsored one, in conjunction with the Smithsonian. And of course, they're full of period pictures, all kinds of fun stuff like that, plus maps and timelines, those kind of things. Like you get an outline of everything that happened in 1865. Anyway, like I say, out of these atlases I'm showing you, I may very well keep one, but I'm going to see if I can, find good homes for the others. And this one was put out by National Geographic, so I kept this one. There were some other ones that didn't look as well produced, and I left those, but goodness, I got three. Oh, this big brick of a book is a companion to the Battle of Gettysburg, full of maps and photos. In fact, on the back you can see, let's see, the Valley of Death, as seen from Little Round Top. I actually got to trod that ground when I was in the 6th grade. But name it, huge brick of a book. Once again, with maps and charts and all kinds of fun stuff. I probably don't have room for it. Once again, hoping to find a good place to give it a good home. I got another book on Roman warfare, and because I'm an American, middle-aged white male, I think about Rome at least 4 or 5 times a week. But I've really started to accumulate books about Roman warfare. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this one, but I'm going to pare my collection down considerably. I probably have 4 or 5 books. I'm going to try and pare that down to 1 or 2. It might very well be this one amongst these next ones. I will probably keep. This is the official West Point U.S. Military Academy's Atlas of American Warfare. This is from the colonial period to the turn of the 20th century, 1900, so that'd be everything through the Spanish-American War. And then this one goes from there up to 1953, which would cover the Korean conflict. I say well worn. Let's see. And most of the maps are this kind of style of map. This was a point to a Civil War map. But these are official maps. This one of the Union Army. I'm hoping there's some Confederate stuff in there too. Some good Jedediah Hotchkiss maps. In the event, these are keepers for me. Okay, let's see where else we can turn. Oh, I'll pull another box up. All right, some small books. The Oxford History of Modern Warfare. I got it because I like their publications, and it's a nice small trade paperback. This one I'm considering keeping. I'm making space in the section of my library where I keep these sorts of editions, so I may very well keep it and get something. This might help me get rid of something else that's in a hardback, taking up more room. Here, a novel about the Battle of Nashville. I did not realize it was a novel at the time, or I probably would have left it. But, like I say, hopefully somebody might be interested in it. And Dr. Barr took really good care of his books. So, hopefully, like I say, somebody will be interested in them. This one I'm going to donate. I've already got a very nice edition of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. It's one of the big trio of military theory. At least that most people think of. You've got Sun Tzu's Art of War. You've got, which is Chinese. You've got the Book of Five Rings, which is its Japanese equivalent, and the European equivalent is von Clausewitz's um, On War. Spoiler: there might be a couple of those editions in here. Uh, and this is a biography of Pocahontas and the history around her era, kind of a life and times thing. And this is James McPherson. He's going to be here probably a couple more times. A small book he wrote about the Battle of Antietam. I've got another book about Antietam, which I will probably send on its way. Keep this one because, well, one, I like this author a lot, and this will take up a third of the space of my other book. All right, this one is probably going to be a keeper. The Confederate War by Gary Gallagher. Actually saw Gary Gallagher speak at a Robert E. Lee commemoration several years ago. Extraordinary writer and also a great public speaker. And I think he's still alive and kicking. He may still even be still teaching. I'm not sure where he is now. Anyway, like I say, that's probably a keeper. The next one, Barbara Tuchman, The First Salute, which I believe is, yes, about the early American Revolution. And I think predominantly about military affairs between colonial rebels and the British Navy. Really like Barbara Tuchman. And there's Miss Tuchman. And she's one of several authors that I have a special section for in my library. Don't know if I'm going to keep this one. I'm probably going to keep, which is kind of strange for me, I'm going to keep the better edition probably, donate the other one. Oh, here we go. Miss Tuchman again. Oh, nope. I pulled my own. This is the one I already had. I'm only keeping one. The other gets donated. Let me pull that one out. All right. We'll probably keep this. This is a history of Greenbrier County. I tend to still collect these local histories for Southwest Virginia and Southern West Virginia, and I do not have this one, so this one's probably a keep. This one is probably going to be a keep for a little while and then donate. It's a book about the Devil's Brigade, which was a joint unit composed of American and Canadian units. They gained quite a bit of fame during the Second World War. Yeah, as you can see, there's their unit patch, USA and Canada. An experiment in joint command. And if I'm not mistaken, there was at least one film adaptation about their exploits. All right. This one I'm definitely going to donate because I already have a trade paperback version. This is the 20th anniversary of A People's History of the United States, 1492 to the present. And I think in this case, oh, may have to keep this one. I just looked inside it. This was presented to Dr. Bard at a 2000 Book Award ceremony that he was the keynote speaker for. And it is autographed by a couple of the college's officials, including Jerry Beasley, who was the president for my tenure there and for many years after. Probably the longest-serving president of the college. But yeah, Concord Book Award. Ooh, may have to donate my paperback and keep the hardcover. Ooh, I'm committing all kinds of heresies here. All right. I selected this is general military history, the soul of battle, by Victor Davis Hanson, who I'm becoming. I like his writing. I've been reading his stuff for going on 30 years. I think he presents military history really well, and this one's a very broad military history. I'm agreeing less and less with him politically as time goes on. You can see him all over YouTube, but I already have one or two of his books. I probably will donate at least one. It might be this one. Now, here's probably if you're apologize if we're talking about value. If you were a book hunter for money, this is probably the most valuable thing that I got yesterday. It is a complete copy of Lee's Lieutenants by Douglas Southall Freeman, who also wrote a multi-volume biography of General Lee. I'm not sure, but this may be a first edition. And if this is a first edition from, I'm thinking these were published in the 40s or 50s. Yes, 1944. Lee's Lieutenants, A Study in Command. And it's done chronologically. The last volume covers the period from Gettysburg to Appomattox. But yeah, 1944. It has the price on it, $20, which in this day and age, this book would probably brand new hardcover in the store, probably 3 times that much, which makes me suspect it has some age on it. But if these are indeed first editions, I sure hope they are. You're talking hundreds of dollars of value here, maybe more. The only thing that can make them push the value beyond that would be if Douglas Southall Freeman autographed them, and I already checked. He did not. Right, let's see here. This book I'm familiar with, First World War by John Keegan. Probably my favorite single volume history of the First World War. I don't think Barbara Tuchman did one called The Guns of August, which is pretty much covering the whole war. But it would be a competition between one of those two, this book or that one, to be my favorite. I already have an edition of this. Once again, I just have to figure out which one I want to donate. But I got it because, like I say, this is, for the subject matter, this is about the best you can do. All right. And all right, I paused for a second to bring up another box full of books. America in 1857, A Nation on the Brink by Kenneth Stamp. I've read a couple of his books on secession, did a major paper on it when I was in college, and read a lot of Kenneth Stamp. Tempted to keep this one, but we shall see. Once again, if you're interested in the period immediately before the Civil War, leading up to the Civil War, and figuring out its causes, and particularly to understand the secessionist movements, Kenneth Stamp's one of the guys you want to read. Now we're on to, well, let's do this one next. I've already got an edition of this. This is The Road to Disunion, by William H. Freeling. Read it in college. So it's like a 40-plus-year-old book, a 40-ish-year-old book. But his thesis is that the secessionist movements that resulted in the Civil War actually began at the very beginning, as you can see, 1776. And actually, I believe in his thesis. The Constitution enshrined some internal conflicts with our system of government that might as well have said, hey guys, let's get back together in 80 plus years and have a civil war. But this is his book about, the period from the Revolution and the Constitution up to the Civil War, and really what motivated secession is. Once again, I've already got a copy, so one is going to get donated for sure. Used to have this one. I think I lost it in one of my moves. This is Reconstruction by Eric Foner. Probably the best single volume book about Reconstruction. And you'll note he calls it America's Unfinished Revolution. And his book runs from 1863 to 1877. His thesis being that even before the war was over, that basically the Union Army and the Union government was already implementing a scheme for Reconstruction and what to do with the economy and governments of the southern states after the war. Excellent book, but written from a socialist perspective. So don't let that turn you off. He has some very interesting ideas about Reconstruction, and his thesis is basically that it was a failed experiment. as he says, our unfinished revolution. Oh, now, oh, okay. All right. Book about the very end of the Second World War in Europe, War in the Ruins. I know the Hatter has a few, or at least a couple, maybe one, um, big World War II um, um, scholar. So maybe they'll be interested in this one. And in fact, there's some other end of the war kind of books in here as well. This next book I have hauled before. It is An Imperfect God. It's a biography of George Washington. Um, Basically talking about his relationship with slaves and slavery. Um, by Henry Winsick. Like I said, I've hauled it before. I've donated to the Hatter before, and I'll probably donate this one as well. Um, I I I already have, I know, at least one uh, Washington biography. I think I've got Ron Chernow's book, and I think maybe one other. I really don't need three. I just don't have the space. In fact, to accommodate some of this, I'm gonna have to get rid of some stuff I already had. Oh, this is a fun one. I got this one for pure fun. The Boys from Brazil. And if you're my age, you might remember the film uh, based on this novel. Ira Levin, The Boys from Brazil. This is the premise of the book is that Joseph Mengele, one of the Nazi doctors from the concentration camp, fled to Brazil, where he conducted experiments to clone Adolf Hitler. What could go wrong? But anyway, never read the book, but I've seen the movie a couple times. Very interesting movie. Very interesting movie. But yeah, I just couldn't pass that up. And if nobody wants it, I'll keep this one. I'll read it. Oh, and more Roman stuff. Biography of Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, by Adrian Goldsworthy. And I want to check the date on this. Yeah, this book was its first edition, published in 2014. And as I said, Dr. Bart had a massive collection in 1989 when I first laid eyes on it. And he passed away 4 years ago. Oh, so 2022. So he bought this just a few years before he passed. But Mrs. Bard says he was buying books right up to the end. He says this was his vice, and I can kind of feel for the guy. It's mine too, obviously. In fact, going through his collection, there were probably 100 books that he had that I already had, and I got some of them, but there are plenty I just left because you did not have the room or the time to get them all. As promised, 2 copies of Clausewitz on War. Um, let's see. Actually, this one's the only one that's the Clausewitz novel, I mean, manual about warfare. Most famous for his most famous quote is that war is politics by a different means, or words to that effect. In other words, that war was just an extension of politics. And I think we're living through a good example of that right now. And this is actually more of a biography of Clausewitz. Let's say this I know the Hatter would like to have because there's tons of guys, military science, uh, well, buffs for lack of a better term, who are gonna want this. So, and I don't know if I can convince them to take the biography. If not, I'll keep it because I don't mind. I wouldn't mind having a biography of Clausewitz. I just got to make room. Okay. Now this one, a Library of America collection of Jefferson's writing. Thomas Jefferson, of course, we're talking, including his autobiography, his notes on the state of Virginia, public and private papers, addresses, and a bunch of letters. I have a version of this in paperback, but I'm going to upgrade to the Library of America and donate the other one. People are still interested in Jefferson's writings, even after a couple hundred years, but I can't pass these up. This is my go-to hardcover classics line. All right. This is a collection of Ambrose Bierce essays, poems, and short stories. I once recommended to a reader who said he'd run out of Edgar Allan Poe and wanted something with a similar vibe, and I said, Ambrose Bierce. He wrote lots of creepy stuff and had a very mysterious death. Um, well, we don't actually know when he died. He disappeared in Mexico, covering a revolution there in 1913. No one really knows what happened to him, but he wrote some great stories. Probably most famous for his short story Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. But in any event, I've got some, and I'm gonna figure out a way to get some of this donated to the Hatter. I'm gonna try and cover the same territory. I think I've already got a couple of his books, so either the Hatter will get this one or the other two. But I want to keep, some Ambrose for myself. There were quite a few of these. A Civil War road trip guide, touristy kind of stuff. Dr. Bard himself wrote one specific to West Virginia, which I have a copy of, and I was kind of disappointed that I couldn't find another copy in his collection. But that'd be good for local interest. All right, and I better speed up because I'm losing the sun. All right, and the next few books are all local history, West Virginia. A book, The Civil War in Fayette County, which I'll probably donate, but I'm going to look through it first. Robert E. Lee and the 35th Star, 35th Star, of course, being West Virginia, talking about his campaigns in West Virginia. So that's the first place that Robert E. Lee saw action. And here is another book about his campaign in West Virginia, Robert E. Lee at Sewell Mount. Before he was the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, he was the leader of Virginia's armed forces and eventually military advisor to President Jefferson Davis. It was only kind of by a fluke that he became the commander of the army. But in any event, tale for another day. I've run out of time. Here's another book of local interest. This is a book about the Hawks Nest incident, I believe in Fayette County, where they were drilling a tunnel through pure silicone, and tons of the workers died from silicosis, just ate their lungs up. But yeah, a book about that. Like I said, local interest stuff. I'm sure would be of interest to somebody. Oh, out of the books I've got about the end of the war in Europe, this is maybe the best. Antony Beevor, or Beevor. He's a good writer. I've read some of his other stuff. Once again, I'm hoping I can find a World War II aficionado who's interested in getting that. It's a book of Back to Civil War, a book about the capture of New Orleans in 1862. It's an area where I've tried to keep my library healthy. Might keep it, might not. But most likely, if I can find somebody else who's interested in it, I will pass it along. Okay. Okay, the next two that are definitely going to get donated to the Hatter Bookshop. I will look through them, but I think these will go fast. Two Mort Kunstler collections, tiny little books. Mort Kunstler is probably the premier Civil War painter, illustrator working today. And let me show you some good samples of his art. Oh yeah, his is a good one. Yeah, he uses. I said, yeah, like like that sort of thing. Commemorating, of course, battles, events of the war, and he's divided in two volumes: the South and the North. Next two are probably keepers for me. They are they're older modern library biographies. One of Napoleon, Emperor of France, and the other is about Benjamin Disraeli, who was Prime Minister of England during a period of huge colonialist expansion in Africa and Asia. Very interesting character. All right, just one sec. I really got to hustle. I've only got maybe 5 minutes of daylight. Of course, the the Dawn to Dusk light will probably come on and it'll save me. Another Civil War book, a book about the Chickamauga campaign. Really was set up the invasion of Georgia, the fall of Atlanta, and really pretty much the beginning of the end of the war, yeah, particularly in the West. Uh, let's see. No, I've got them kind of jumbled. Um, let's do this one first. Another Civil War battlefield guidebook. Let's see. I think let's probably find a market. I'm hoping the Hatter wants it. If they don't, I'll find it at home. Once again, very disappointed I couldn't find Dr. Bard's uh, own travel book. Oh yes, a book about the battles at Chattanooga, Tennessee, called "The Shipwreck of Their Hopes," by let's see, by Peter Cozens, and that's an apt title. The South had a real chance to crush the Union Army of Tennessee here. There was a mistake in deployment on the Union side. The Confederacy exploited it, or tried to, and then things just kind of fell apart. And actually, the hero of this battle is, I forget his first name, but General Thomas, who basically kept the Union Army from ruin that day. All right. All right. This is a very large book about a very small battle. This is Stonewall Jackson at Cedar Mountain, one of the little battles in his Shenandoah Valley campaign. Once again, tons of Civil War stuff. This one might be a keeper. I've read some other stuff by the author Jeffrey D. Wirt. This is a book about Mosby's Rangers, led by John Singleton Mosby. Probably the South's most successful guerrilla raider. Very interesting guy. His life would make a really good movie. And in fact, it was a short-lived TV show in the 50s. Okay. More Civil War stuff. Stephen Sears, To the Gates of Richmond, about the Peninsula Campaign, and I believe also 7 Days. And this is where Robert E. Lee becomes the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, because the then commander, a guy named Joseph Johnston, was wounded on the battlefield. And so Robert E. Lee stepped up, became the commander of the army, won the day, actually won the 7 days. And one person, I got to find whose quote this was, but one person said, Robert E. Lee became the commander of the Army of Northern Virginia, and it was probably the worst thing that happened to the Confederacy because it made the war last about 3 extra years. There's some truth in that. Wouldn't have lasted a whole lot longer had he not been there. A biography of Ulysses S. Grant by Brooks Simpson. I've hauled this before. See if the store wants it. Because I already have a couple of Grant biographies. I do not need another. All right. Another set. Bruce Catton's series on the Civil War, his three-volume set that has seen better days. If it were in better shape, this would probably be worth a few dollars. But these are kind of old and rickety. Yeah. Oh goodness, when were these published? Yeah, just the late 60s. Anyway, a Civil War aficionado will want those. Another one I've actually read, but I do not have currently, because believe it or not, I called down my Robert E. Lee biographies. But this is Emery Thompson's Robert E. Lee biography, and I thought it was a really balanced and fair portrait of the man. Oh, am I missing something? I don't know. I might be. But anyway, we have another Barbara Tuchman book, The March of Folly, From Troy to Vietnam, and there's Miss Tuchman again. And this is a book of military science and history. Basically, she points out the recurring theme in human civilization about the foolish conflicts we get into. was like, it still might be pertinent for today. She was a wise woman. And here, the last of the books in Rick Atkinson's Liberation trilogy. Um, he's done a 3-book set about the American Army in the European theater of the Second World War, from like 1942 until the end. Very well written. Um, I know I have 2 of them. I may be looking for this one. I'm thinking I have the first 2 and I don't have this one. I'm probably gonna give it up anyway if I can, let's say, find a good home for it, because it just takes up too much space. And I'll eventually find a soft cover version of it. Eventually. I have patience. And like I say, uh, patience is a good skill for any book hunter to exercise. All right, I believe that's it. I was thinking I had some more stuff, as if I didn't already have enough, but maybe that's fine and dandy because it is getting dark. Once again, this video will be linked in the description of a much shorter video I will do highlighting just my favorites out of this. I'll probably pick like 10 books and show off the games a little bit maybe, and then just go from there. In any event, like I say, I've outlasted the sun, so I better stop. As always, be safe, take care, and have good book hunting. Thank you.